Manchester City need this. Pep Guardiola needs this. And every single City fan needs this. Musiala of Bayern Munich is now being linked with a potential move to Manchester City. And why do Manchester City need this? Why do we need this? And why does Pep Guardiola need this? Very simple. As I've said many, many times, at some point, we have to accept that in the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to have a replacement for Kevin De Bruyne. And a player of that quality is going to require a lot of money and a big stroke of luck, because there's not that many players out there that can replace someone like a Kevin De Bruyne. We could have potentially got Jude Bellingham last year as a great player and not an exact replica of Kevin De Bruyne, of course, but someone who can sort of fill that void. He's gone to Real Madrid. There's very, very few players now that I look at in the world of football and say, you're good enough to come into this team and help create chances for what is effectively the best team in the world right now, being the treble winners. A lot of you guys like Florian Wirtz, not see much of him. But Musiala of Bayern Munich, this is absolutely incredible story. We're going to go through a few details. Where has this information come from? We're going to have a look at his contract situation, his injury history, as well as his stats. So, Fabrizio Romano has said there are many important clubs around Europe keeping an eye on Jamal Musiala. Jurgen Klopp knows the player's talent very well, but also people at Chelsea, Manchester City, and clubs in Spain. So obviously there's going to be a lot of football clubs around Europe and probably Saudi Arabia, to be honest with you, that are looking at someone like a Musiala and thinking, we got to try and get him in. And Manchester City, of course, are going to be one of those teams without doubt in my mind. Let's have a look at his player history then. So he's only 20 years old. If we get him this summer, he'll be 21. Obviously, birthday there, as you can see, is in February. He's got a contract until 2026. Now, why is this important? This is important because when the summer comes around and the transfer window is open after the Euros, he's only going to have 2 years left on his contract. That isn't a particularly strong position for Bayern Munich. It's not a disgustingly weak position, i.e. only having 1 year left on, where you kind of just got to accept whatever you get given, otherwise you lose the player on a free. You've got 1 more year of trying to persuade the player to sign a new contract. You've got another year of negotiations the following summer. But ultimately, in a fast-moving environment such as football, having 2 years on the contract as a club that has the player and doesn't want to sell isn't particularly a good position to be in, as we've seen a number of times with Kylian Mbappe at PSG, because he just kept on renewing his contract for 2 years, getting a massive pay increase, and they just kicked the can down the road and now might be losing the player on a free transfer. So if there is going to be a time to get Musiala out of Bayern Munich, it's going to be this summer. It's going to be this summer when Bayern Munich are not in a great position. Because, for example, if you compare this with Florian Wirtz at Leverkusen, Florian Wirtz has an extra year on his contract. He's contracted until 2027, which means Bayern Leverkusen have at least 2 transfer windows to try and sell the player if they can't get him to sign a new deal. Bayern Munich effectively have, 1? Because you don't really, the one that comes the year after, you're really in the mud. You don't really have any negotiating power there. So if there is a time to get Musiala, it's probably going to be this summer upcoming. Let's have a look at some of his injury history. A couple of you guys have mentioned to me in the past about LB. He's only 20. He's had quite a few injuries. Well, let's have a look at that. Let's test that theory. So we'll go back to 2021. Muscular problems, was only out for a week. Nothing serious. Then had some fitness issues, which to me looks like a sort of continuation of the muscular problem, as you can see below there. As I say with every single player I do, I'm not counting coronavirus as an injury, because fucking hell, it's not his fault that he got coronavirus. So quarantine, coronavirus further up, and infection, I'm just going to completely ignore all those, okay? Because, like I say, anyone could have got that. It's not his fault. He then had some sort of muscle strain. Looked like he was out for, a week? Missed it. That seems just like a little knock. Laceration wound. Again, out for, a few days. Nothing serious. More recently this year, he's had a hamstring injury. We've seen only a small hamstring injury. Players get those all the time. He was out for 2 weeks. And then at the start of the season, he missed just over 2 weeks with some more muscle problems. to me, in my opinion, I think people who are mentioning his injuries as a potential concern are maybe going a little bit overboard. I don't look at those injuries and go, that's a serious issue. We can't be spending £100 million on that. I mean, I don't know. I've not checked it. But if you check out Kevin De Bruyne's injury record before we signed him from Wolfsburg, I mean, I would imagine that it probably would have been something similar to that. So the injuries, to me, I'm not particularly concerned with. Let's have a look at some of his stats. So this season, he's played 578 minutes, as you can see there, just above my head. He's played 8 games, 1 goal, 2 assists. So, I mean, an okay start to the season. I guess it's almost a goal or an assist every 2 games, which isn't particularly poor. And what we're going to do now, we're going to go back to the last year, and this is where it gets seriously impressive, guys. Seriously impressive. I mean, again, 3,000 minutes, 47 games. He scored 16 and assisted 16. And as I say, if you do the maths on the goals or assists per minute, which I think is the best sort of ratio, it's not perfect by any means, because sometimes you can get sort of subbed on in dead minutes, but he gets a goal or an assist every 94 minutes. It's every game. It's pretty much every game, guys. They are phenomenal numbers. They are phenomenal stats. I mean, look, when we lose Kevin De Bruyne, which is going to happen in the next few years, we're going to need a player that can step into the team, that can score goals, that can create, has a little bit of energy about them. And Musiala seems to me like he's that guy. He seems to me like he's got the ability to do that. I mean, again, if we go to the year before, I mean, what was he at this point? He's probably 17, 18 at this in 2021. Again, look at this. 40 games, 8 goals, 6 assists. Unreal numbers for a 17-year-old playing for Bayern Munich. Honestly, I think if this is true, this information that City potentially look at Musiala, and to be honest, I don't see why it wouldn't be true. At the end of the day, we need to face the facts. We've got one of the, if not the best creative player in world football, Kevin De Bruyne. That's almost undisputable, right? And even if you do dispute it, you're not completely disagreeing with what I'm saying. You're just saying, nah, probably not. You're gonna have to replace it with someone who can create a score, and there are very few players out there that can fit that bill. As I said, Florian Wirtz is potentially an option as well. He started the season off very, very strong. He's got an extra year on his contract, so it could be a bit more difficult to get him out. But I wouldn't imagine it would be too much more difficult to get him out than Musiala. However, with the interview that Musiala did a couple of weeks ago, where he said he's happy at Bayern, but he wants to be winning stuff, i.e., he wants to be winning Champions Leagues. And if City come knocking with Pep Guardiola, is he really going to turn that down? Look, maybe, maybe not. People say, well, he's German LB, he'll want to stay at Bayern Munich. Well, you know, we've had other Germans leave Bayern Munich. We've had other Germans leave German clubs and come to the Premier League. You know, and at the end of the day, I would say this as well. If we don't get Musiala, Florian Wirtz is still a great option. But for me, if I was in charge of this now, I'd put all my eggs in the basket of Musiala. Well, actually, maybe not all my eggs, because we did that with Jude Bellingham and we got screwed. Probably put most of my eggs in the Musiala basket, and the rest in Florian Wirtz. Guys, I want to know, before I wrap up, transfer fee on this. 2 years left on his contract. Let's say we sign him in the summer. 2 years left on his deal. How much would we be prepared to spend on him? For me, current market, it's going to be over 100 million. I think anything up to 120. Look, I know it's ridiculous. I know it's obscene, but that's the way the game's gone now. If you want top players, you got to play the top prices. And Musiala is a top player. If you want him, you're going to have to spend over 100 million. I think, based on what I've seen of Musiala, he'd be a great player for Manchester City. He'd be a great player for us as fans to watch. I think he's super exciting. Scores goals, creates. He'd work wonders under Pep Guardiola. And could take over that Kevin De Bruyne role in a year or two. So, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who would you rather have? Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala, or somebody else? And if we did go for any of them players, what sort of transfer fees are we looking at? And we've not even mentioned Phil Foden. What does this mean for the future of Phil Foden? Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you're new. I'll be live tonight, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you in a bit.